Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the All Sorts podcast. Today, we're going on a deep dive into a fascinating discovery in the heart of Saudi Arabia, a Bronze Age oasis called Al-Nata.
Oh, okay.
We've got some great sources to unpack, including archaeological reports and expert analyses. Are you ready to uncover
I am.
ancient life in the Arabian Desert?
Absolutely. It's remarkable how much our understanding of ancient Arabia has changed in recent years. For a long time, the prevailing view was that the region was primarily inhabited by nomadic peoples during the Bronze Age. But discoveries like Al-Nata are painting a much more complex picture.
It's like we're peeling back layers of history, revealing a hidden world beneath the sands. Right?
Yeah.
Tell me what initially sparked your interest in Al-Nata. Was it the sheer scale of the settlement or something else entirely?
Well, one of the things that struck me was the presence of a massive 9-mile-long wall encircling the oasis.
Wow.
To construct such a fortification in the Bronze Age would have required a significant level of social organization and coordination.
Right.
It suggests that these weren't simply scattered groups of nomads. This was a community with a shared purpose and the ability to undertake large-scale projects.
A 9-mile wall. That's incredible. It makes you wonder about the perceived threats they faced. Were they defending themselves against rival settlements or perhaps nomadic raiders who might have envied their fertile oasis?
It's likely a combination of factors. The desert environment during the Bronze Age was a volatile place with competition for resources and shifting alliances. The wall served as a powerful symbol of protection and a deterrent to potential attackers. It also speaks to the importance of the oasis itself, a vital source of water and fertile land in an otherwise arid landscape.
It's fascinating how this contrast between the harsh desert and the life-giving oasis might have shaped the development of Al-Nata. Do you think this unique environment played a role in their transition from a nomadic lifestyle to a more settled existence?
Absolutely. The oasis provided a stable base for agriculture and allowed for a degree of predictability that wouldn't have been possible for nomadic groups constantly on the move. This shift to settled agriculture likely had profound social and economic implications, leading to more complex forms of social organization, specialization of labor, and the accumulation of wealth.
So this oasis was like a catalyst driving a transformation in their way of life. I'm hooked. Now I'm picturing this Bronze Age town nestled within the protective embrace of that massive wall. What can you tell us about the layout and the structure of Al-Nata itself?
Well, imagine stepping through the gates of the wall and entering a surprisingly well-planned town.
Wow.
It wasn't just a random collection of houses. There was a clear sense of order and intentionality in the way the settlement was laid out. Archaeologists have identified distinct zones within Al-Nata, including a residential area with at least 50 multi-story dwellings, a central area with larger structures that might have served administrative or communal functions, and perhaps most intriguingly, a necropolis. A burial ground with unique stepped tower tombs.
50 multi-story dwellings. Wow. That's a lot more people than I initially imagined living in this desert oasis. Those stepped tower tombs sound fascinating. I'm already envisioning ancient burial rituals and maybe some incredible artifacts buried within those tombs. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I'm curious about the everyday lives of the people who called Al-Nata home. What do the archaeological findings tell us about their daily routines, their skills, and their social interactions? What kind of pottery did they create, and what can it tell us about their society?
While we don't have written records from Al-Nata, those seemingly mundane objects, you mentioned pottery fragments, grinding stones. Metal tools are incredibly valuable clues. For example, they found a distinctive type of pottery decorated with geometric patterns, which differs from styles found in neighboring regions.
Interesting.
This suggests a unique cultural identity within Al-Nata and perhaps a degree of isolation, at least in terms of their artistic influences. They also found evidence of metalworking, including bronze tools and weapons, which indicates a level of technological sophistication and potentially even trade connections with other communities.
It's amazing how much we can glean from these seemingly ordinary objects, right?
It is.
It's like each shard of pottery, each bronze tool is a whisper from the past, telling a story about the people who created and used them. The fact that their pottery style was so unique that really piques my curiosity.
Right?
Does it suggest they were relatively isolated, or could it be a sign
It's hard to say.
of a strong sense of cultural pride?
It's a question worth pondering. While their pottery suggests a degree of cultural distinctiveness, the presence of metal objects points to connections with the wider world. Remember, the Bronze Age was a time of expanding trade networks, and Al-Nata, with its strategic location within the Oasis, likely played a role in those exchanges.
That makes sense. It seems like they were both connected to the outside world and fiercely proud of their own unique identity. Okay, let's talk about those step tower tombs you mentioned. They sound like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. What can these burial practices tell us about their social structure and beliefs?
Well, imagine these imposing structures rising from the desert landscape. A testament to the importance they placed on honoring their dead. What's particularly interesting is that some of these tombs were more elaborate than others, and the grave goods found within them varied significantly. Some contained bronze weapons, precious stones, and intricate jewelry, while others held more simple offerings.
Interesting.
This suggests a degree of social stratification within Al-Nata, with some individuals or families holding more prominent positions than others.
So even in death, there were distinctions, a hierarchy of sorts. That's thought-provoking. But does the presence of weapons in these tombs automatically point to a warrior culture?
It's a good question.
Or could those weapons hold a more symbolic meaning within their burial rituals?
That's an excellent point. It's important to avoid imposing our modern interpretations onto the past. While weapons might suggest a focus on warfare, they could also be symbolic representations of power status or protection in the afterlife. We need more evidence to fully understand the cultural significance of these burial practices.
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces, right?
But
we're trying to reconstruct a way of life based on fragments of evidence and glimpses into their rituals. So for now, the true meaning behind those weapons remains a tantalizing mystery. But here's another mystery. Why was Ellanta eventually abandoned? Around 1500 to 1300 BC, it seems this thriving community simply vanished. What might have happened?
But that's a question that continues to puzzle archaeologists. There are several possibilities, but the archaeological record doesn't offer a definitive answer. It could have been due to environmental shifts like a prolonged drought or changes in water sources, which would have had a devastating impact on their agricultural practices. Or perhaps they faced increasing pressure from nomadic groups or rival settlements, making their oasis a less desirable place to live.
So Ellanta's story ends with a question mark. It's intriguing, but also a bit sad to think that a community that thrived for centuries could simply disappear. I guess that's part of what makes archaeology so captivating. It's like a constant process of discovery. Piecing together fragments of the past to understand how people lived, interacted, and ultimately faced the challenges of their time.
And what's particularly fascinating about Al-Nata is that it challenges our assumptions about the nature of urbanization in the ancient world. It introduces us to a concept that archaeologists call slow urbanism.
Slow urbanism. That's a new one for me. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay. Well, the traditional view of urbanization, particularly during the Bronze Age, focuses on the rise of large, centralized city-states with complex administrative structures and monumental architecture. But Al-Nata, along with other settlements in the region, suggests a different path, a more gradual, less centralized form of urban development.
So instead of this rapid, top-down approach to city building, it was a more organic process driven by local needs and adaptations to the environment. That makes a lot of sense, considering the unique challenges and opportunities presented by the Arabian Desert. But how exactly does this slow urbanism manifest itself archaeologically? What distinguishes it from other forms of urban development?
That's a great question. One of the key characteristics of slow urbanism is the absence of those massive centralized structures that we typically associate with ancient cities. Think about the pyramids of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia. Those monumental projects required a huge labor force and a powerful ruling elite to direct them.
So it's not just about the size of the settlement,
right,
but also about the nature of the structures they built and how those structures reflect their social organization.
Exactly. In Al-Nata, we see evidence of communal projects like the wall, but the scale is different. And we don't see those grand palaces or temples that dominate the landscapes of other ancient cities.
Okay.
Instead, the focus seems to be on more practical structures, dwellings, workshops, and communal spaces designed to meet the needs of the community.
It's almost like a more egalitarian approach to urban planning.
Yeah.
Right? Where the emphasis is on shared resources and communal well-being rather than the glorification of a ruling elite.
That's a fascinating interpretation. It's certainly possible that the social structures in these slow urbanism settlements were more fluid and less hierarchical than in those highly stratified city-states.
Okay.
But we need more evidence to fully understand the nuances of their social dynamics.
It's like we're catching glimpses of a different way of life, a different way of relating to each other and to the environment. Okay, I want to go back to those metal artifacts we were discussing earlier. You mentioned that they found bronze tools and weapons. What types of objects were they specifically, and what can they tell us about Al-Nata's connection to the wider world?
Well, alongside the bronze weapons, which included daggers, spearheads, and arrowheads, they also found tools like axes, chisels, and knives. These objects weren't just utilitarian. Some of them were quite finely crafted with decorative elements that suggest a skilled artisan tradition.
Wow.
They even found evidence of bronze casting within Al-Nata, indicating that they weren't simply importing finished goods, but were actively involved in the production of metal objects.
So they were not only skilled craftspeople, but also innovators in their own right. Makes you wonder, where were they getting the raw materials for these bronze objects? Was there a local source of copper and tin, or were they trading for
it appears that
these materials with other communities?
That's a key question. Unfortunately, we haven't found any evidence of copper or tin mining within the immediate vicinity of Al-Nata. This strongly suggests that they were part of a larger trade network, obtaining these essential metals from other regions.
That opens up a whole new world of possibilities. It means they weren't isolated in this desert oasis. They were connected to a web of exchange that stretched across the ancient world. What kind of goods might they have been?
That's a good question.
Trading in return for those metals.
It's hard to say for certain, but they likely traded goods that were unique to their region or that they produced in abundance. Perhaps they were known for their finely crafted textiles or pottery, or maybe they traded agricultural surpluses from their fertile oasis. They may have even acted as intermediaries facilitating trade between other communities.
It's fascinating to think about those ancient connections, how people and objects moved across the landscape, shaping cultures and influencing the course of history. It's like those trade networks were the arteries of the Bronze Age, carrying not just goods, but also ideas, technologies, and artistic influences.
Exactly. And Al-Nata, despite its relatively small size, seems to have been a vital node within that network. It challenges our assumptions about the scale and reach of these ancient connections.
It's like they were punching above their weight class, so to speak, playing a role in a global system of exchange that stretched far beyond their desert oasis.
Okay, I want to shift gears a bit and go back to that question that's been lingering in my mind. The abandonment of Al-Nata. We've talked about environmental factors and potential pressure from nomadic groups, but I'm hoping you can delve a bit deeper into the evidence. Are there any specific findings that might point us toward a more definitive answer?
It's a tricky question because the evidence is often open to interpretation. But there are a few intriguing clues that archaeologists are examining. For example, some researchers have pointed to changes in the pottery styles found in the later layers of Al-Nata. The distinctive geometric patterns that characterize their earlier pottery seem to become less prominent, replaced by more simplified designs that resemble styles found in neighboring regions. So a shift in artistic styles. Could that be a sign of cultural influence from those neighboring communities? Perhaps they were becoming more integrated?
Could be.
Or maybe they were facing pressure to conform to a dominant cultural trend?
It's certainly a possibility, but there's also evidence of a decline in the quality of craftsmanship during this later period. The pottery becomes cruder, the bronze objects less finely crafted. This could suggest a disruption in their trade networks, making it more difficult to obtain raw materials or to maintain those high standards of artisan production.
So it's like we're seeing a confluence of factors, potential environmental stresses.
It seems that way.
Changes in their trade networks and perhaps increasing pressure from those neighboring cultures.
Right.
It's a complex puzzle, but each piece of evidence adds another layer to our understanding of Al-Natah's final chapter.
And what's particularly intriguing is that the abandonment of Al-Natah seems to coincide with a broader trend in the region, a period of significant upheaval and transformation during the late Bronze Age.
Right.
We see evidence of climate fluctuations shifting trade routes and the rise and fall of powerful empires in neighboring regions.
It's like Al-Natah wasn't immune to those larger forces at play.
Yeah.
They were part of a dynamic system that was undergoing a period of profound change.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what lessons can we learn from their story?
That's a question worth pondering. Al-Natah's story reminds us that even those seemingly isolated communities are interconnected with the wider world, both in terms of their economic ties and their cultural influences, and it highlights the vulnerability of human societies to those larger forces, environmental shifts, political upheavals, and economic disruptions that can shape the course of history.
It's a sobering thought, but also a reminder of the resilience of human communities. Despite those challenges, they found ways to adapt, to innovate, and to create a thriving culture in a challenging environment.
And that brings us back to the concept of slow urbanism. Al-Natah's story challenges our assumptions about the nature of progress and the inevitability of large-scale centralized urban development. It suggests that there are alternative paths, different ways of relating to the environment and to each other that might offer valuable insights for our own time.
I love that perspective. It's like we're looking to the past, not just for answers, but for inspiration for different ways of thinking about the challenges we face today. If slow urbanism could create a thriving community in a harsh environment of the Arabian Desert thousands of years ago, perhaps there are lessons there for building more sustainable and resilient societies in the 21st century.
It's a fascinating line of inquiry, and one that researchers are increasingly exploring. As we grapple with issues like climate change, resource depletion, and the pressures of rapid urbanization, perhaps there's wisdom to be gleaned from those ancient communities who navigated similar challenges centuries ago.
Okay, I'm officially hooked on slow urbanism. I need to delve deeper into this concept. But before I get lost in a research rabbit hole, I want to make sure we circle back to Al-Natah. Is there anything else you want to highlight about this remarkable discovery before we move on to other Bronze Age wonders?
I think the key takeaway is that Al-Natah challenges our assumptions about the past. It reminds us that there's always more to discover, more to learn, and that our understanding of history is constantly evolving. It's a story that speaks to the ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience of human communities, and it offers a tantalizing glimpse into a different way of life, a different path to urbanization that might offer valuable insights for our own time.
Beautifully said. It's a reminder that the past isn't just a collection of dusty artifacts and forgotten ruins. It's a living, breathing story that continues to shape our present and inspire our future. Okay, I'm ready to venture further into the Bronze Age world. Where are we headed next on our journey?
Well, since we've been talking about slow urbanism, I thought we could explore other Bronze Age settlements in the Arabian Peninsula that show evidence of this unique pattern of development.
Okay, I'm picturing a map of ancient Arabia with all these settlements popping up like stars in the night sky. Where should we focus our attention?
Let's head north to the Taima Oasis, which is also in present-day Saudi Arabia. Archaeologists have been excavating there for decades, and the discoveries are truly remarkable.
What makes Taima so special? Is it similar to Al-Natah in terms of its size and structure?
Well, Taima was actually much larger than Al-Natah. It was a bustling hub of trade and cultural exchange. Strategically located on a major caravan route that connected the Arabian Peninsula to Mesopotamia and the Levant.
So Taima was like a crossroads of ancient civilization. A place where people, goods, and ideas flowed from all directions.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that Taima also shows evidence of this slow urbanism we've been discussing. While it was a significant urban center, it didn't develop into a massive city-state with the centralized power structure like those we see in other parts of the ancient world.
So even though it was a major trade hub, it maintained a more decentralized form of social organization.
That seems to be the case.
Okay.
And archaeologists have found evidence of a diverse range of activities in Tama, from metalworking and pottery production to agriculture and animal husbandry. It suggests a community that was both skilled and adaptable, able to thrive in a challenging environment.
I'm sensing a pattern here. Both Al-Nata and Tama, despite their differences in size and function, show a unique path to urbanization. One that was more gradual and less centralized than the models we often associate with the Bronze Age.
And that pattern is becoming increasingly evident as more archaeological work is done in the region. It's forcing us to rethink our assumptions about how urban life emerged and evolved in different parts of the world.
This is so exciting. It's like we're rewriting the textbooks on the Bronze Age, adding new chapters and expanding our understanding of this complex and dynamic era. But here's a question that's been nagging at me. If these settlements in Arabia were thriving during the Bronze Age, why didn't they eventually develop into large, powerful empires like those we see in Egypt and Mesopotamia?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's one that archaeologists and historians continue to debate. There are several possible explanations, and it's likely a combination of factors.
Hit me with those theories.
One factor is the environment. The Arabian Peninsula, with its vast deserts and limited water resources, presented unique challenges for large-scale agriculture and population growth. It's a much different environment than the fertile river valleys of Egypt and Mesopotamia, which could support much larger populations and centralized power structures.
So the environment played a role in shaping the trajectory of these settlements. It's like those constraints forced them to be more innovative and adaptable, but it also limited their potential for expansion. What about other factors?
Another factor is trade. While these Arabian settlements were connected to long-distance trade networks, they didn't control those networks in the same way that the empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia did. Those empires amassed wealth and power by controlling key trade routes and resources, which allowed them to build armies, construct monumental buildings, and expand their territories.
So it's about who holds the power in those trade networks. Who controls the flow of goods and resources.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But what about cultural factors? Did the people of these Arabian settlements have different values or beliefs?
It's possible.
About leadership and social organization?
That's certainly a possibility. We know that cultures have different ideas about how societies should be structured, how power should be distributed, and what makes a good life. It's possible that the people of these Arabian settlements simply didn't aspire to the same kind of centralized power and territorial expansion that characterized the empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia.
So it's not just about environmental constraints or economic factors. It's also about different cultural values and ways of seeing the world. That's a fascinating insight.
And it reminds us that there's no single path to civilization or progress. Human societies are incredibly diverse. And they've found many different ways to organize themselves, adapt to their environments, and create meaningful lives.
Those diverse paths are worthy of our attention. It's not just about focusing on the biggest and most powerful empires. It's about appreciating the full tapestry of human experience, even those threads that might seem less prominent at first glance.
Exactly. And that's one of the most exciting things about archaeology. It's constantly challenging our assumptions, expanding our horizons, and revealing the interconnectedness of our world, both past and present.
This has been an incredible journey. And I feel like we've only just begun to scratch the surface of the Bronze Age. But sadly, our time is running short.
But the journey doesn't end here. We encourage you to explore further, visit museums and archaeological sites, and keep those questions coming.
The past is a collaborative effort to understand where we come from So share your thoughts, insights, and discoveries with others.
Right.
Let's keep the spirit of exploration alive.
And don't forget to connect with us on social media.
Okay.
We're on X and Instagram and Threads.
Right.
We love hearing from our listeners and learning from your perspectives.
A huge thank you to all our amazing listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the Bronze Age.
Yes.
Your curiosity and enthusiasm fuel our passion for exploring the world of all sorts.
Right.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future episodes.
Yes.
Check out our other episodes covering a diverse range of topics because here at the All Sorts podcast, we believe there's something for everyone.
Absolutely.
From the depths of ancient oases to the far reaches of the cosmos, we'll continue to seek out those hidden gems of knowledge and share them with you.
Yes.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those questions coming.
And as always, thanks for listening to the All Sorts podcast.
Goodbye for now.